welcome to Urban Flower Collective. My name's Lisa and I'm your host here. If this is your first time here, then a really warm welcome. If you've done my tutorials before and you're coming back for more, then thank you and welcome back. So today we're going to look at this lovely water lily, and I'm going to show you how to make the water lily, how to make the petals, and then in a separate tutorial I'll show you how to make these lily pads and some buds as well. I thought the tutorial would be too long if I added everything in together, so it's going to be in two separate parts. So as you can see, it's a big flower this, and it's quite a showstopper, but it's pretty easy to make. So let's get on with it and I'll show you how to do it. So first of all, I'll go through what we're going to need today. Now I don't have proper lily cutters, water lily cutters. So what I'm going to use are dahlia cutters because they are the right shape. I'll be using them upside down, so the pointy ends at the top. So if you've got proper water lily cutters, then brilliant. If you've got lotus flower cutters, they will do as well. Otherwise, you can use dahlia cutters, which I'm sure pretty much of you have. And for this, this is a 6 set. I'm going to get rid of the smallest one and the largest one. And I'm going to use the 4 middle petals for this. Again, I don't have a water lily veiner, so I'm going to use a lotus veiner for this. And you can see, if you can see on this camera, it's got really deep ridges. Now if you don't have one of these, you could use something like a multi-veiner, as long as it's got straight lines. The lines on a water lily are really very, very straight. So you could use something like this sort of I think this is a sunflower veiner. You could even probably get away with a magnolia veiner because they have quite straight lines as well. But as I say, I'm using this lotus petal veiner today. We're going to need some scissors just to cut our wires, and then we're going to need something to make the centre. Now for the centre, you can either use something like this, which is sort of a multi-cutter. It's a chrysanthemum cutter, but it's also great for dahlia centres as well. But if you haven't got one of these, this is from Sugar Art Studios in the States. They're quite expensive. Just a normal daisy plunger cutter or something like this will do. And I'll show you how to make the centre with both of these things. We're going to need some wire, and we're going to need a lot of petals for this. I think we'd use probably about 35 to 40 petals, depending on how big you want this. So I'm just going to use 28 gauge wire. I don't want everything too bulky around the base of the petals, so I'm using 28 gauge wire. And just to make the centre a bit more sturdy, I've got 3 pieces of 22, and I'm going to use these together. You could use 16, 18 gauge for this, just as one single, but I'm going to use 3, and just to make that centre really nice and chunky and thick. I've got some egg white here, but you can use edible glue if you want. And we just need some florist tape. I'm just going to use green. I've also got my little boning tool, this is called, and I love this. If you haven't got one of these are used for crafts more than sugar craft. If you haven't got this, you could use the edge of a rolling pin, or you could use a cell pin for the same thing, or even a ball tool really, but when we get onto that I'll show you how. So let's get started. Today I'm going to use my favourite, we need some dusts as well, and as you can see from this, I'm keeping the sugar paste white, the flower paste white. The petals could be just white and you wouldn't need any dust on at all. You know, there are a lot of water lilies that are just white, but you can see the tips of this one have got pink on, and on this one the bases have got pink, and I think it just looks nice. It adds a little bit more interest if you've got some colour. So I've just got Pelican Pink from Fractal Colours here, and then for the middle, as I'm just using white paste, I'm just going to dust it up with Fractal Colours Lemon Yellow. So that's that, let's get going. So I'm going to start off with the centre first. And as usual, I'm using my favourite ultrafine. This works well for my conditions. It's up to you. You use whatever flower paste works well for you. If you're in a humid condition, you might need paste that works well in humid climates, but this works well for me, so you have a play around with what's good for you. So we're just going to need a tiny amount for the centre. Now we need probably less than just a bit more than a pea size, maybe the size of a small marble, I would say. We're just going to roll that into a ball like so. Let's keep the rest. Pop it back in the packet. And then I'm going to take my 22 gauge wire, or 20 gauge wire I think it might even be. And what I'm going to do, just for quickness, I mean you could make these in advance and let it dry overnight, and that would be fine, it would be rock solid, or let it dry for 2 or 3 days. I'll do a cheats method where I'm going to use a blowtorch. So what I'm going to do is heat up the end here. You can do this over your gas hob or over any open flame, and you can see it's got red hot there. Turn this off. Be really careful when you do this. Don't burn yourself. And I'm just going to pop that in there. And when that cools off, that will be rock solid, and I'll be able to use that straight away. So I'm just going to leave that to the side for 1 minute. I'm just going to cut it off. You don't need a long stem on a water lily because they're coming out of the lily pad. You don't really need a long stem at all. You can make it a bit longer if you're popping it in a cake, but yeah, it doesn't need to be too long at all. So next we're going to take our multi-cutter, and as I say, you can use either this kind or you can use a plunger cutter, just anything with lots of petals on to make our centre. Now I've already rolled out some paste just because it's boring to have to watch me rolling out paste, and I've rolled this out to level 9 on my pasta machine, and you can see my hands straight through it. If this was a lined board, you would see lines through it. You can always roll it out a little bit more when it's as fine as you can. I've got a new brush and it's leaving hairs everywhere. Use a new black brush. So first of all, I'm going to just take this one, and actually I'm going to pop it on top. Sometimes when they've got lots of petals like this, it's easier just to put it over the top to get a good cut. And I'm going to give it a roll, and then I'm going to finish it off with my thumb here just to get a really, really good cut on it. So that is the first one. So you can see we've got lots of little prongs there. And then I'm going to as well show you how to do it with the daisy cutter, because this might be something that you have anyway. And again, I think I'm just going to make sure I get a good cut by running my finger over each one. I find sometimes plastic cutters don't cut quite as well. Okay, I'll keep that paste just in case we need more. And then next, you can either use a cutting wheel, or to be fair, I prefer a pair of scissors. These are quite big scissors, I should have had my smaller ones. But say we're going to do the daisy first, I would cut that in half, and then I'd cut it into quarters. And then I'm just going to cut down the middle of each petal, just to make them thinner again. Just the length of the petal, so it makes them a lot thinner, and you get more. So because these are in a circle, you need to cut them into quarters, as I've done here, just to fit around the centre. So that would be the daisy, and you do exactly the same for this. So I'm just going to cut each one in half, so we get more petals and they're nice and thin. Right, next we're going to bring over our petal pad. I think I forgot to tell you needed one of these, but I'm telling you now. So this is just a firm foam pad, and we're going to pop all of these on to it. Now what we're going to do is take our Dresden tool, and using the sharp end of the Dresden tool, we're just going to pull each of these in. Now if they're not curling in enough, raise it up a bit more, maybe it just a little bit further than 45-degree angle from the pad, and that should curl it in. If you keep it flat, it doesn't work. So lift it up and give it a curl. So we want these to curl in. So this is it with the daisy, and we're doing exactly the same with the straight one as well. So you get lots of little curly fronds for the middle. So I'll show you on this as well. Try not to put it over the holes. So I'm doing this quickly, just take your time with this. Try and get them, they're not curling as well, so I'll lift this pad up. If they stick, make sure you do each one individually. Okay, now I've got all those done. I'm going to bring back my bowl, and what I'm going to do is just strengthen this up before we start putting anything else on it. So I'm just going to cut a few more lengths of this wire, about the same size. Wire cutters for that, and then I'm going to tape it up. So if you haven't used florist tape before, just give it a stretch and it sticks to itself. So just curl it around the wires, squeezing as you turn it. Now that should be pretty solid on there now. If not, you don't want all your centre to fall off the wire, but that feels nice and solid. So next I'm going to bring over my edible glue. I'm using egg white. You can use edible glue, particularly if you're vegan you won't want to use egg white. I just use egg white because it's handily available. I'm going to pop that there, and I've got a little brush here. And what I'm going to do is, I'll start off with these little daisy ones. I'm just going to add some egg white, and I'm going to curl these first ones in over. So I want the fronds to meet in the middle, like so. And then the same for the next bit. So you want them to come and meet in the middle, and maybe one more. So I'm just sticking them on. Hopefully you can see. And those little bits are meeting in the middle, like so. Now I'm going to put another row on, but I'm going to turn them out over. So I want them to start to look like the, if you can, I'll show you the example. I want them to look as if they're turning out, not in. Now you can, there are some water lilies where they are all going in over, but the example I used, the real water lily I was looking at to make this, they came out over. So I'm going to put the egg white on the back this time and start them coming out over, so you can see. So that's our daisy. If we were using this, I'm going to cut this in half just to make it a little bit easier to use. It's not working very well because it's on the pad. And again, I'm going to put it on the back side. So I want the curls to go out over. So I'm just going to put the egg white a little way up the beginning of these fronds, these petals. I'm going to start to stick them on. So you can do more at a time with these in a straight line, and we're just neaten off the back a little bit. And then the last lot, I think this is probably going to be enough. If you want more of a fuller centre, you can keep going with this. Put as many of these on as you feel you need to. Look for inspiration on the internet, or look at real water lilies for your inspiration. But for me, I think this is probably going to be plenty. So I'm just going to neaten that off around the base. You won't really see this base, so it doesn't have to be too neat. But I just don't want any chunky bits sticking out. So you can see that's a nice sort of frilly centre. And what I'm going to do is just hang it upside down to dry a bit. So if I put it this way, they'll all start to open up, and I want it to be quite compact. So I'm just going to hang it over on the boom while we make the petals, and that should be dry by the end. So next, again, I've got my paste already rolled out. I've got it in one of these flaps, which is really handy. These are petal protectors, and these ones have got 2 flaps, so you can put lots of petals in these, as you can see. And they just keep your petals moist while you're working on them, particularly when you've got such a lot of petals like this water lily. So I'm going to use this paste I've just used up first of all. So as I say, we've got 4 different size petals. So the first one is the smallest petal, and we need about 7 of these. I mean, play it by ear, it depends on how big you've made your centre. For the centre I've made, I think about 7 is perfect. If in doubt, make 8. It's better to be looking at it than for it, as I'll say. So I'm just going to pop these in the wallet when I've cut them out. So I'm going to do 7 of the first. Oh. So make sure you get a really good cut. Great, so I thought I'd get 7 from that. I'm going to keep this because I will use this again later when I'm putting the wires into these petals. So I shall wrap this in some cling film for later. Now next we're going to go on to our second one, and we're going to need probably 7 of these as well. So again, maybe do 8 just to be on the safe side, but 7 should be enough. So I'm just going to cut 1 of each. And then this third size, we're going to need about 14. I would say cut 14 to 16 of this one. And then the last one, the larger size, we're going to need about 9 or 10 of these. Again, I would say cut 10, better to be safe than sorry. So I'm going to show you, I'll cut the rest of these out and come back to you, but I shall show you how we prepare each one. So first of all, I'll do 1 of each to let you see. So we're going to use them with the pointy end upwards. So you can see one's got more of a rounded end and one's got a pointier end. But with these water lilies, we need the pointy end at the top. Now what I'm going to do is just, I know I've rolled this paste very thin, but in between these sheets of polythene, now if you haven't got one of these bespoke wallets, you can just put them between two a plastic document wallet and do the same. You just need it between two bits of plastic. And I am just really thinning the edges out. I don't want a big ridge in between the plastic and the start of this. The thing with sugar flowers is the finer you can get these petals, the more realistic they're going to look. So I've just thinned them out. Now if you don't have this, which is called a boning tool, you could use, what could you use? You could use a cell pin. You could use the edge of a dowel. You could use the side of a rolling pin if you want. You could even use a ball tool, but sometimes you get a ridge. But these are really cheap from Amazon. They're only a few pounds, £2 or £3. They come in a pack of 2. I'm seeing if I've got the other thing. I haven't got it here. It's got like a long thing as well, but this is really handy. So I've thinned those out. Now next, I'm taking my 28 gauge wire. And I think, you feel and see what you think is going to hold your petals. If the petals feel heavy, if you've rolled your paste out thicker, you might need a thicker wire. So go for a 26 gauge wire perhaps. Anyway, I shall show you how we use this. So I'm going to take back this little piece of paste that I didn't use, and I'm going to twirl the tiniest amount of paste onto the end of each wire. So starting with the smallest one. Now the paste needs to be super sticky for this. If your paste dried out, get some fresh paste. You want this to be really sticky and you want to work fast with this. I'm going to do 4, you just do one at a time if you're slow with it, but I'm going to do 4 just to show you each petal, how each one is prepared. Now this will take you a little bit of time. This is a showstopper of a flower. You will be able to charge a lot of money for this flower because it's going to take you a fair bit of time to do, but it's quite an easy flower. There's nothing tricky. That centre is the trickiest thing you're going to do. The rest is pretty easy. Now I would recommend definitely getting a veiner that is a curved veiner, like the lotus one or a bespoke water lily veiner, just because it will help you with the shaping of this. And if you've got that, it's going to be super easy. So I've got my 4 things. I'm just going to wrap that back up again. I'm going to bring over the veiner, which I say is a lotus flower veiner. It's not a very big veiner, and one of my petals is going to be bigger than the veiner, but I'll show you how to get around that as well. All full of tricks. I don't like buying things that you're not going to use often, so I like to repurpose things. So what I'm going to do, where this paste has gone onto that wire, I'm going to pop the petal over the top of it as central as I can, so you can see it's in the centre. Just goes to the end where the paste ends, and I'm going to place it in the veiner. Now the scooped bit is the back of the veiner. I'm going to place that in, get it nice and straight so the lines are straight, pop the top on, press down really firmly, and our petals on the veiner, and it gives it a little bit of a curve. So I'm going to do that for all 4 sizes, for all of the petals. So you've got a lot of petals to do here. As I say, you've probably got 40 or more petals, 40 to 50 petals. You may not use them all, but I'd rather have too many and decide whether it looks right than have to start making more. So that's that one. And then this is the 3rd size. So we're going to have 7 of those, 7 of those. We're going to have about 14 of these. Now if the end pops out a bit, just move it down and press at the top, and that will ensure you get the veins in. And then we're going to have about 10 of these large ones. So same again, I'm just popping the wire on. Pop this in now. You can see this one is far too big for the veiner, so I'm just going to press down, and then I'm just going to move it down, make sure the top's in, and press at the top. Oops, don't want that one in. You can see that's done that nicely. Next, I'm just going to bring over my pad again. There's only one more thing I need to do to these. So this is the same for each size. I'm going to bring over the Dresden tool again, and I just want to go around the very, very edge with the pointy bit of the Dresden tool, just to curl it in a tiny little bit, just to bring those sides in a little bit. And then, because I don't have a former, I've just made some formers from aluminium foil. So by popping it into the veiner, pressing down, and it gives you the shape of the veiner. So I'm going to pop each petal in there and let them dry. So that's the first one. The second one, let me just turn these sides in. So I'm just going around the very, very edge, and the same on that side, and it just brings those edges in a little bit. Pop it in the former, and I shall leave it to dry. Same for the third. Just bring in those edges. Now when it comes to the last one, as we know, the former was a bit too small. So what I'm going to do for that is do the same again, but pop it in a dessert spoon and you'll get the same shape. Now, if you were using a flat veiner that didn't give you the curve and you couldn't make the aluminium, then popping them in these little foil things would do the same, would work exactly the same. So it's up to you. If you've got spoons that you can rest them on, then that's fine. Otherwise, just do it with the aluminium foil. Now, I'm going to crack on and make all of the petals and leave them all to dry, and then I'll show you how we dust them up and put everything together. Hi, welcome back. So now we've got all our petals cut out. They're all drying on the formers. It's time to start dusting them up and getting everything ready. So as you can see, the centre that I had drying has dried quite nicely now. So I'm going to bring over some paper and I'm going to start to dust this up. Now if you look at the centre of water lilies, they're usually yellow. You can go for whatever shade of yellow you like. I'm going to start off with this Fractal Colours Lemon Yellow, which I like. And I'm going to see how it'll go. I'm going to use a flat brush because I'm going to get right into these crevices. Now, if you're doing this, you can start off with yellow paste if you want and make all of this yellow paste. I just like the tones you get from dusting up and the sort of effect you get. Some little bits of this will be left white. Some will have more yellow on, and I just like that look rather than sort of a flat look that you would get if you coloured up your paste first. I suppose you could always dust it up a little bit more, but for me, I just like to I prefer to start with white paste. But again, it's entirely up to you. It's your preference. Now you're not going to see round here so much, around the base, because the petals are going to cover that. So all we're going to see are these little fronds, and maybe a little bit in the middle as well. So I'm just going to try and get those all covered up with yellow. It's still a little bit soft, and that's good. If you leave this until it's too dry, it can be brittle and you can snap these off if you're not careful. So I'm just getting right in as deep as I can with this flat brush. And so that's a nice pale yellow. I think what I'm going to do is just add a bit more of an orangey yellow to it as well, just in some certain places, just to give it that multi-tonal look. So let me bring over this. This is an edible art. I think it's sunflower yellow, but I've worn off the label, so I can't really see the colour, but I think it looks like a sunflower yellow. And I'm just going to add little bits here and there, not everywhere, just on a few of the fronds. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to pop those yellows away and bring over some pink. Now the pink I'm using today again is a Fractal Colours. I'm liking their colours at the moment, and it's pelican pink. And it seems a nice shade for this water lily. So let me move that out of the way. Let me bring over my pink brush. And remember with this, less is more. So I'm going to do the one where it's just pink at the base. Now water lilies can be absolutely lily white. Funnily enough, lily white. They can be just white, so you could put it together at this point. But I just like to give it a little bit of colour. I think it adds a little bit of interest. Actually, you don't need to do the backs of these inner petals. The only backs you need to do is the very outer petal. So I'm going to do one of each to show you. It's exactly the same. So just popping a little bit of colour. Start at the bottom. Remember, you can't take this away, but you can add more if you don't feel you've got enough. So start at the bottom, a little bit deeper at the bottom, and just go into an ombre effect up the petal. If you've done my magnolia tutorial, it's very similar to the magnolia shading that we did on that. Remember, do subscribe to the channel because there's lots of new tutorials coming out. I've got lots planned. I've got a couple this month even, so do subscribe and do hit the notification button and you'll be first to see the new stuff. So that's the third size, and then we're going to go on to the fourth size. Now you may have noticed I've got two of this fourth size, and this is because the very final set of petals, the very outer petals, are a little bit more green. They're more like a leaf. So I am going to just sort of stylize it up a bit. I'm going to put some pink on it, but I'm also going to put some green on it as well, and maybe a little bit of purple around the edges. So they're the four main petals. So the four different sizes, they're all exactly the same. We don't need to do the backs of them, just the fronts. And then this last one, as I say, this is going to be the very, very outer petals, and they're more like a leaf. And what I'm going to do here, and you can do this however you want, you can dust it up however you want, but I like to do it this way. I'm going to just put some pink up both sides, maybe even up to the tip, like so. For this one I'm going to do the same on the back, just around the sides. At the base. And then I'm going to take a green now. What have I got here? Olive green. So any kind of darkish green would do. You can use whichever shade you have. I'm taking a bigger brush, and as I say, you can't take it away, but you can add. So I'm just going to dust that on, and I'm just going to blend that into the pink around the edges. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. And again on the back, it picks up all the beautiful veins on the back here. Now this one, because it's quite dark, if you're going to put it on a pale cake, I would either steam it or spray it with some confectioner's glaze for that very back one. You could also put a little bit of purple on the edges if you want. I like an aubergine or a purpley colour. This is just Bishop Purple, again from Fractal Colours. A very, very small amount. I'm just going to tap the edges here. Not put much on at all. So you can see I'm just tapping around the edges. And that just gives that a little bit more interest. So that's our very final petal. So you can see there in our different sizes. Let me move these dusts away so I don't get dust on everything. I'm really good at knocking them over and spilling them everywhere. And getting it on me. You know, you can wear gloves to do this. If you're messy like me, I always end up with black hands. I've just got some surface wipes here. I'm going to give my hands a wipe, and I'm just going to wipe down to make sure I don't get dust on the white petals. Give my hands a quick rub, and we'll start taping up, I think. So I'll bring over all the petals I've done. So as you can see, I've already dusted these ones. So we've got all our smallest, our second size, our third size, our fourth size, and last but not least, our little leaves for the back. So hopefully you can see all of those. And we've got our centre. Now, because we're going to need a lot of tape on these, what I'm going to do is use half width tape. So I've just got this green tape and I'm going to cut it in half down the middle. You can get special tools to do this, but actually it's just as easy to cut it in half. So I shall do that now. And then I'm going to start taping up. Now, you may not need to use all of these petals. You see how it looks. It depends if you're on a massive, big showstopper of a flower. Depends what kind of cake it's going on, what kind of arrangement it's going in. If it's going to be the star of the show and the only thing, I would go all out with it. Otherwise, you know, put it on as many or as few as you like. So what we're going to do is just bend back these first petals at the base. So just hold the base of the petal and bend back the wire. So it's at a bit of a right angle. So I have 7 here. We might get 7 on, we might not. And I'm just going to start at the base of the centre, and I'm going to start to tape them on. Now don't worry, we can manipulate these if they don't look right, but we're just going to start to tape. So just methodically around. They don't overlap, these petals, they just sit next to each other. And I think I'm probably only going to get 5 or 6 on here. I'm going to squeeze them up a little bit more. So it depends on how big you make your centre. You know, if you go all out with lots of fronds on there, this centre is going to be a bit bigger. Or it depends how big you make your initial ball. But that's the beginning. Now, luckily, the stems on a water lily are really very thick. So I'm just going to tape all the way down to the bottom to neaten that off. I'm going to manipulate these round so they're all even. And that's our first row done. So I'm going to start with this next size now. So we're not going to need that one. And the same again. So we're just going to bend these back. You can have this as open or as closed as you want. The ones I've got on the cake over here are quite open, but you could have them a bit more closed. Depends on the style you're going for. So we'll start again. And this time I'm just going to put them in between the little gaps where the 2 petals were put together last time. So again, we're just going to start to tape these up. So again, I've only needed 6 for that second row. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom again just to secure those wires. And I'm going to move on to our 4th row. Now this size we're going to put 2 rows on. So again, we're going to go in between where our last row sat. So I think that's our next row, and then we're going to repeat the same with the same size. So you can see, you play it by ear, you use as many or as little as you need to give it a full look. And each time we're going a little bit further down and a little bit further back with these petals. So as I say, if you've never used florist tape before, just give it a stretch and start to twirl and it'll stick to itself. So I'm just going to wind this down to the bottom again. And we'll have a look. Now you can manipulate these around if you feel you've got more at one side than the other. Just give them a little twist around. Open them out a little bit if you want to see more of the pink in there. And now we're going to go for our final pink row. So same again. And again, you don't need to use all of these, just put on as many or as few as you like. So we're going a little bit lower down again and opening these out. Obviously, you take your time. I'm doing this super quick for demonstration purposes, just so you can see how it looks. But you take your time and get them placed correctly. So give it a little look. What do we think? And I think we need one more there. Get some more tape. So keep looking at it and see where you think you've got something missing. I'm thinking down there. For a larger one. Now I'm going to go in with the full thickness tape and tape it all up. Right up to the stems. And all the way down. Right, so we're looking pretty good there. You can just see the hints of pink inside, which is nice. So now we're going to go in with our very last ones. I'm still manipulating those around a little bit. Maybe we need one there, like so. And now, again with these last ones, I'm going to just hang that. Down. Just going to band these over. Now, as I say, I would normally glaze these, but I don't want to spray the glaze in the studio. I normally glaze outside in a box, so you can give them a quick spray. But I usually put 3 or 4, maybe 5 at a push of these on, and they just go a little bit lower again. And they're very subtle, so you can't really see them as a big leaf, but they just add a little bit of greenery to the bottom of the plant, if you can see. So I'm just going to space those out equally, and then I shall manipulate them into a place where you can see them at the very end. So that's 3. I think I'll use all 4 of these. And I'm just going to go all the way up and all the way back down. So you can see these are just a little bit visible, but not too in your face. And if it's in a display like that, you can see it just dropping down nicely. So that is our lotus. You could finish it off with a little calyx on the back if you want it really neat, but nobody's really going to see the back of it. Our finished water lily. I hope you like it. What I'm going to do now is make the leaves and the bud in a second video, so do keep tuned or have a look out for that. Remember to subscribe, click the notifications, you'll be first to see. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to see your water lilies. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.